Welcome back and very good morning to this course of microwave engineering. Today we are going to see the measurement procedure of the remaining parameters. In today's lecture, we will see briefly the measurement procedure of the unknown impedance and the measurement procedure of the microwave frequency. You recall from our previous lecture, we already studied the method of measurement of voltage standing wave ratio. In that particular case, the voltage standing wave ratio can be measured in two different ways. The setup is going to be a different in the case of the measurement of VSWR and in the measurement of impedance slightly. But the setup that we are going to use today for the measurement of frequency and impedance, it is same as that of the setup procedure of the VSWR, only there are certain changes towards the terminal end. So in today's lecture, we will see a procedure to measure the unknown impedance and unknown frequency of the microwave signal. So we will begin with making the notes on the measurement procedure. So I will give the heading as impedance measurement. So first we will see a measurement procedure of unknown impedance. Impedance measurement. Okay, so impedance measurement is a very straightforward technique which utilizes the same setup as we used in the case of VSWR measurement. And as I already told that we are not going to make use of expensive instruments like vector network analyzer, spectrum analyzer, okay, and power meter, because these instruments, though they can give us the direct reading of the parameter which we wanted, but they are expensive, and we will adopt the second technique in which a low cost laboratory based source of a microwave we will utilize. Normally a reflect klystron based microwave source which is modulated with certain specific low frequency signal we use as a measurement signal, right? So the low cost measurement procedure we will adopt again in the measurement of unknown impedance and in the measurement of unknown microwave frequency. So the same setup we are going to make use of. So first of all, let me draw the block diagram of the measurement setup. So first we begin with the source of microwave over here. Okay, so first of all we should have a source of a microwave signal. So here I will write microwave signal, or you can call it as a microwave source. Now this typical source we can make use of in the laboratory is a reflect klystron source. We already know that reflect klystron is used as a source of a microwave signal which is configured into oscillator configuration. This microwave source is connected, next to it we have the isolator. Okay, so we have the isolator device. We already know what is the job of isolator. It will avoid the reflection of the forward traveling microwave signal back into the source of the microwave signal. Then next we have the frequency meter. It is optional, you can omit the use of frequency meter, or you can connect the direct frequency meter, and direct frequency readout is also possible, with which we can measure the frequency of the microwave signal. So this is a frequency meter. I write it over here, frequency meter. This is optional again. You can omit the frequency meter from the circuit or from the setup. Then we are going to place the attenuator if it is required. Again, this is again an optional. So here I will write this block diagram as a variable attenuator. It is a standard setup. Okay, So after variable attenuator, we connect a slotted waveguide section. So here I will draw a little bit bigger diagram. Okay, and this is slotted waveguide section. So this part of the setup is very important because we need to measure the distances, and this slotted waveguide section facilitates us to measure the distances of voltage minima and voltage maxima. So this is slotted waveguide section. So the output from variable attenuator is connected to slotted waveguide section, and finally this slotted waveguide section will be terminated into the unknown impedance. Okay, so what I will do is I will draw here the last block, right, and that is the unknown impedance which we want to measure. So here I will draw the unknown impedance. So this is unknown impedance, complex impedance, or I will write Z, and that is connected to the slotted waveguide section. The other end of a slotted waveguide section is connected to the tunable probe. So here I will draw a tunable probe, right, in this way. So this is a tunable probe. We already know what is the job of this tunable probe, or this tunable probe is nothing but a diode detector, please remember, through which the signal is detected. It is sometimes also called as a detector mount also. Detector mount. Okay. And to this tunable probe detector mount, we connect the output device through which we can observe the magnitude of the signal. Okay. So this we call it as an output device. Here you can connect either the CRO, or you can make use of a VSWR meter. It is optional. So either you can make use of a CRO as a display output device, or you can connect the VSWR meter at the output. So this is a typical setup in order to measure the unknown impedance. Now this is the impedance which we want to measure. So here I will write impedance to be measured. And please remember that this impedance is complex in nature. So if you recall the measurement procedure of the VSWR, in that particular setup, the arrangement of the devices, whatever we saw, the same type of arrangement is made over here. Only the thing is that the impedance which we want to measure is connected at the output. Okay, and the slotted waveguide section is terminated into a tunable probe via the output device, and here the output device we can make use of either a CRO or the VSWR meter. Right, now let us see what is the procedure to measure the impedance. Okay, so I will tell you the basic equation with which the unknown impedance is calculated. So here I will write the impedance, how it is calculated. So I will write here impedance, it is ZL. So it is calculated using a formula Z0, right, 1 plus reflection coefficient gamma L at the load divided by 1 minus gamma L, right. So this is the simple equation with which we can calculate the value of the complex load impedance ZL, right. So where Z0 is characteristic impedance, right, and what is gamma L? Gamma L is reflection coefficient of unknown load, or rather I will write unknown complex load, right. So here the Z0 value, the characteristic impedance that we know. So it is normally the characteristic impedance of the connected devices, or if we are making use of a transmission line, the characteristic impedance of that transmission line is known to us. So here in the evaluation of complex load impedance, Z0 is already known to us. Now here only the procedure we want to follow for the measurement of reflection coefficient of the load. Once you know the value of reflection coefficient at the load, you can substitute that value into this above equation and you can calculate the value of complex load impedance. Okay, so what is the procedure for that? So here we need to measure, our aim is to measure the reflection coefficient of that complex load, right? So how we calculate the reflection coefficient then? Reflection coefficient is given in terms of its magnitude, mod of gamma L, and phase. Please remember it is denoted with magnitude and phase in this particular way, e raised to j phi L, right? So this is the equation with which the reflection coefficient is evaluated, where mod gamma L is the magnitude of reflection coefficient, right? Magnitude of reflection coefficient, right? And e raised to j phi L will provide phase of the reflection coefficient, right? Okay, so what we want to do then, we want to measure the magnitude and phase of the reflection coefficient. Once we know, we will get the entire value of reflection coefficient, then you can place this value of reflection coefficient into the equation of impedance to calculate the unknown value, right? Now here we have a separate procedure to find out the magnitude and the phase. Okay, so we already know a procedure how to measure the standing wave ratio. Once we know the standing wave ratio, okay, which is developed by that unknown impedance, then we can find out the magnitude of the reflection coefficient, right? So what is the relationship between the standing wave ratio and reflection coefficient? So if S is a voltage standing wave ratio, voltage standing wave ratio, we already know the procedure how to measure the VSWR, or we can call it as a VSWR. So this is given in terms of magnitude of a reflection coefficient with a formula 1 plus mod gamma divided by 1 minus mod gamma. Okay, so in short, how we can write the standing wave ratio S is equal to 1 plus mod gamma magnitude of reflection coefficient divided by 1 minus magnitude of reflection coefficient. Now from this we can rearrange this equation in terms of reflection coefficient. Okay, so how we can write, then magnitude of reflection coefficient gamma is given as S minus 1 upon S plus 1, where S is the VSWR. Okay, so here the magnitude of reflection coefficient can be calculated once we know the voltage standing wave ratio developed by that unknown load. So here the unknown load is connected at the end over here, right? So whatever VSWR this unknown load is going to develop, this VSWR we take and we will calculate the complex reflection coefficient magnitude. Okay, so this is how we already know the procedure how to measure the VSWR. Once we know the value of the VSWR that the load is developed, we can put this value over here and we can calculate the magnitude of the reflection coefficient. Okay, and the next thing is how to calculate the phase of the reflection coefficient now. Okay, so again the phase of the complex reflection coefficient I will write over here. Phase of complex reflection coefficient. How it is given? It is given as e raised to j phi l, where phi l is the actual phase. Okay, so e raised to j phi l. Now here we want to find out what is the phase. Okay, so the phase of the reflection coefficient, so here phi l is the actual phase. Okay, so it is given by the equation 2 multiplied by beta multiplied by d minimum minus pi. So please remember, this is the equation to calculate the value of phase phi l. Now it is given by 2 multiplied by beta multiplied by d minimum. Okay, so where beta is the phase shift constant. So beta is phase shift constant. Now how it is given then? So beta is given as 2 pi divided by guide wavelength, where again lambda g is the guide wavelength. Okay, so if you know the guide wavelength, then you can calculate the phase shift. So this phi phase will become phi l is equal to 2 multiplied by 2 pi divided by lambda g into d minimum minus pi. So it will become 4 pi divided by lambda g, right, into d minimum minus pi. So in order to measure the phase shift phi l, we should know what is the value of guide wavelength, that is lambda g, and we should know the value of minimum distance when the load is connected. Okay, so here the unknowns in order to calculate the phase shift is the guide wavelength and the minimum distance of voltage when the load, unknown load, is connected in the circuit. Okay, now we will see a procedure in which the measurement of guide wavelength and the measurement of d minimum together can be calculated at a time. Okay, so what we do is we will use the same setup as shown over here, right? Now the same setup we will use. Now what we do is initially we replace this unknown zone impedance with short circuit. So what we do is we replace this unknown impedance initially with a short circuit. Okay, so here I will show in this way. So here I connected a short circuit. I will write as a short circuit. So I will write here also. So initially I will write we short circuit the unknown impedance. So we short circuit means we will remove that unknown impedance and we will place a short circuit end termination at the end. Okay, and we know that when the transmission line path is short circuited, now this setup can be considered as a transmission line over here, and this transmission line is short circuited over here. This is the short circuit terminal. Okay, and whenever the microwave signal generated by the source propagates in the forward direction, and as it encounters the short circuit on the right hand side, what will happen? Reflection will take place. Okay, and because of reflection the standing wave ratio pattern will be formed. Okay, so the standing wave ratio pattern will form in this particular way, right? So this is a standing wave pattern. Now this is the condition when the unknown load impedance is replaced with a short circuit. So what we'll get? At the position of short circuit we will get voltage minima. So here I will denote. So this is the first voltage minimum. Now this is a distance at 0. So at distance 0, here I will get minimum voltage. Now this minimum voltage point is over here. And what is this standing wave ratio denoting? It is denoting VSWR. It is denoting VSWR, right? So at the position of short circuit, we will get voltage minimum, right? And similarly at this particular position, again we will get second voltage minimum, and so on. So voltage minimum 1, voltage minimum 2, so on. We will get a standard pattern of VSWR on that test bench. So in this way we will get minima voltages. Okay, now we know that the distance between the two successive minima voltage when the end is short circuited by the termination is nothing but the half of the guide wavelength. So this particular distance over here, right? So I will denote this distance. So this particular distance is normally half of the guide wavelength. Okay, so we will start on the right hand side with the 0 distance. Okay, now we will denote this traveling of slotted waveguide section. So what we are going to do is we are going to move the tunable probe over the slotted waveguide section, and we are going to find the position distances of voltage minimum. So this is the distance. Okay, so we will note down this particular distance, call this as a distance d1 in centimeters. Okay, still move on the left hand side continuously. At that time we will get another voltage minimum. Now the voltage minimum second time, whatever we are going to get at that particular distance, call that distance as a d2 in centimeter. Okay, so here the guide wavelength is then given by guide wavelength lambda g is equal to twice absolute difference between d1 and d2. Okay, where d1 and d2 are distances of voltage minima, right? When load is short circuited. Okay, so please remember that here on the right hand side at distance 0 we have placed the short circuit, right? So we'll get a standing wave pattern over the test bench over this transmission line, and we can measure the guide wavelength by taking the difference between the two successive minima position and multiplied by 2. So here we have got the value of lambda g. So here we got this value of lambda g. Now we want to find what is the value of d minimum. Okay, now what we do is we will replace this short circuit with the actual load impedance. So at the second time, now what we do is now we replace short circuit termination with actual unknown load. Okay, so what we do is now we will remove this short circuit, right? So what we do is I will now remove this short circuit. Okay, and this short circuit I will replace with the unknown impedance now. Okay, now when I do that, again what I want to do is I want to measure the distance of the first voltage minimum. Okay, so when you replace the short circuit with the actual unknown load impedance, you will get a different waveform, right? And this waveform is again a voltage standing waveform. Okay, I will denote with a different color. Let us say I will denote with the green color. Okay, so here you will get a waveform like this when you replace with unknown load. So this green waveform is a VSWR with unknown impedance. Okay, so this green waveform is also indicating the voltage standing waveform, but this type of waveform you will get when you replace the short circuit with the unknown load. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to find out again the position of first voltage minima when the short circuit is replaced with unknown load. So from here again we will start from the right hand side with a distance 0, and now here we find that this is the voltage minima position, V min 1, right, when the short circuit is replaced with the unknown load. Okay, so we already know where is the minimum position of voltage when the short circuit is placed. We know where is the minimum voltage position when the short circuit is replaced with the unknown load. So the distance between the minima voltages with respect to short circuit and with respect to unknown load, this distance we call it as a D minimum, right? So D minimum, how we are going to measure? So what we do is we will connect the unknown impedance, right, and we will again start moving from the right hand side towards left hand side, going towards the generator, and we will find out where is the voltage minimum is shown by either using a CRO or the VSWR using a tunable probe. So a position or a distance at which we will get minimum voltage, we will take down that particular distance with respect to the minimum voltage position of the short circuit condition. Now that distance we call it as a D minimum. So here D minimum, I will write over here, is distance between voltage minima in short circuit load, right? Initially when the load is short circuit load, and voltage minima when actual load. Okay, so please remember D minimum is the distance of two voltage minima. The first voltage minima is obtained during the short circuit condition, and the second voltage minima is obtained when the short circuit is replaced with the actual load. So that D minimum we will get. Okay, so this D minimum is the distance between the voltage minima in the case of short circuit configuration subtracted with the voltage minima distance of the actual load replacement condition, and we can measure this particular D minimum. So when we replace a short circuit termination with the actual load, we measure, so here I will write, we measure D minimum. Okay, so we have found out what is the value of D minimum. Okay, so here in the equation of the phase shift calculation, phase D minimum is calculated. So once you know the guide wavelength, once you know the D minima, you calculate the phase phi L. Once you know the value of a phi L, the phase of the complex reflection coefficient can be calculated, right? Already the magnitude of the reflection coefficient is calculated with the help of VSWR. So all these values are known. Now what you do is you place all these values into the equation of unknown impedance over here, okay, which I highlight here. Okay, so once you know the gamma, so gamma is given as mod gamma into e raised to j phi L. Okay, and phi L is given by 2 beta D minimum, right, minus pi. So in the procedure we have found out beta, where again beta is given by 2 pi by lambda g, and lambda g is the guide wavelength, which can be found out by measuring the distances between two successive minima in the short circuit condition. Okay, and d minimum is the distance of differences of minima voltages when the short circuit is replaced with the actual load. So once we found all these values, place these values over here in this equation of the impedance and calculate the unknown impedance. Okay, so the value of the unknown impedance that you are going to get with this particular condition is known as the complex value of load impedance. So a complex value of a load impedance you can measure with this particular technique, and this is the entire measurement procedure of unknown complex load impedance. I hope you understood this particular procedure. It is simple and straightforward. The same type of setup that we are going to use for the impedance measurement. Okay, so first of all we should know what is the VSWR developed by this unknown impedance. By knowing the VSWR, first of all we will calculate the magnitude of the reflection coefficient, and then we will proceed to find out the phase of the reflection coefficient. Okay, so the phase of the reflection coefficient is itself calculated by knowing the value of guide wavelength and by knowing the value of minimum d distance. Okay, so the beta value can be calculated by knowing the guide wavelength, and in order to find the guide wavelength we need to find the distances between the two successive minima when the load is short circuited. This is a very important. Okay, and the d minimum is the distance between two successive minima when the short circuit is replaced with the actual load. Once we know all these values, you calculate the phase shift. Once you know the phase shift, you place this value of phase shift into the equation of gamma L and calculate gamma L, and place this value of gamma L into this equation and find out the value of complex load impedance. Okay, so this is a simple and straightforward procedure of how to measure the unknown value of a load impedance, right? So the load impedance, it could be an inductive, or it could be a purely capacitive, or it could be a combination of anything. Okay, so the complex load impedance indicate if the value of the reactance is negative, then it will indicate a capacitive type of impedance. On the other hand, if the real part of the evaluated complex load impedance is positive, it will indicate inductive type of a load, right? So normally this type of a green waveform which we have shown over here for the VSWR, it is an indicative of inductive type of a load. In the type of a capacitive, we will get a VSWR much below the standard value of short circuit configuration, right? So in this procedure we saw the procedure to measure the unknown impedance of the given value by using microwave measurement technique. Now we move ahead and we will see a procedure of frequency measurement. Okay, so we will see a procedure of a frequency measurement now. Now frequency measurement, first of all, is done with the help of commercially available frequency counter and cavity meters also. Okay, so as I directly told you in the beginning of this block diagram over here, this part over here which I highlight, so this frequency meter can be directly utilized in order to measure the generated frequency. Okay, so if you recall in the module number 2, in the chapter number 2, junction based waveguide passive devices, in that case we saw the operation of a wave meter or the frequency meter. Okay, so at that time we saw how to make use of frequency meter or wave meter in order to calculate or in order to estimate the value of microwave frequency generated by the klystron source. Okay, so the same procedure that is applicable when we make use of a frequency meter, we can directly measure out the generated frequency by the source. Okay, alternatively there is one more technique in order to measure the frequency of the source of the microwave. Okay, so in that particular case we assume that we don't have the frequency meter to perform the operation of frequency measurement. So if we don't have the wave meter or the frequency meter in the circuit, how still we can measure the unknown frequency? So this is the second method that I will illustrate you how to measure the unknown frequency generated by a microwave source without using wave meter or frequency meter, right? So here I will give the heading as frequency measurement. Now we will go ahead with frequency measurement technique. Frequency measurement. Okay, so in this procedure what we do is we will see a procedure to measure an unknown frequency without using frequency meter or wave meter. Okay, so in a standard way the frequency of a microwave signal in gigahertz, it is simply given by a equation 30 divided by free space wavelength in centimeter. Okay, so this is a simple equation to calculate the unknown frequency generated by a microwave source, right? So where lambda 0 we call it as a free space wavelength. I write here. So lambda 0 is known as free space wavelength, and this free space wavelength we need to find out in centimeters. Okay, so once we know the value of a free space wavelength in centimeter, then we can put this value into this equation and we can directly calculate the value of generated microwave frequency in gigahertz, right? Now here we already know from the earlier theory that the distance between two successive minima is always equal to half of the guide wavelength, where t minima here we consider as the distance difference of two successive minima voltages. Minima stands for minimum voltages. Okay, and what is lambda g? Lambda g, as already we know, it is known as a guide wavelength. Okay, so this relationship we know that the distance between any two successive minima is nothing but half of the guide wavelength. Okay, now there is a relationship of this guide wavelength with the free space wavelength. Okay, so the relationship of this guide wavelength with the free space wavelength is given by lambda g is also given by lambda g is equal to the equation lambda 0 free space wavelength divided by 1 minus lambda 0 upon 2a, right, whole square, this square, okay, and this is under square root. Okay, so this is the equation in order to calculate the guide wavelength. Okay, so if we square on the both side, we will get lambda g square is equal to lambda 0 square divided by 1 minus lambda 0 by 2a whole square. Okay, so first of all we should know what is the value of this guide wavelength, and we should know what is the broadest dimension of the rectangular waveguide with which the test bench is constructed. So here lambda g is the guide wavelength and a is the broader dimension of the waveguide test bench. Broader dimension of waveguide. So remember here that we don't need a separate or the different setup in order to measure the unknown frequency. So the block diagram whichever I have shown you over here, the same block diagram is used in order to measure the unknown frequency. Only the thing is that we need to remove this frequency meter from this setup. Okay, because we don't want to make use of a frequency meter, but we are going to develop a technique to measure the frequency without using this frequency meter. So the same setup can be used. Okay, just use same setup without using the frequency meter. Okay, and what we do is we will find out the distance between the two successive minima voltages when the end is short circuited. So this is important for short circuit condition. I will write over here. So what changes that we need to make in this setup? Remove the frequency meter and remove the unknown load impedance. Okay, so this you remove, and instead of this we connect short circuit at the end of slotted section. So here I will connect short circuit at the slotted waveguide section, and rest of the mechanism or the arrangement will remain same. So in order to measure the unknown frequency, I will remove the frequency meter, I will remove the unknown impedance, and the unknown impedance I will replace with short circuit condition. And with this condition, I will measure the distance between two successive minima, which will give me the guide wavelength, that is lambda g. Okay, so lambda g is known to us then. Okay, then I will measure what is the distance of broader dimension of the waveguide. So that is nothing but the A, which is normally we call it the width of rectangular waveguide, right? Width of rectangular waveguide, because normally the waveguide test bench setup consists of rectangular waveguide. So we can easily measure the inner dimension of this rectangular waveguide and the width, and this will be given in either centimeter or millimeter. We will place this value of small a over here, and only unknown in this particular equation is the free space wavelength. So we know what is the value of guide wavelength. Okay, we know what is the value of dimension of the waveguide. Place these values over here and find out the free space wavelength. Okay, once we know the value of the free space wavelength, we can place this value of free space wavelength into the original equation of frequency in centimeters, and we will calculate the unknown frequency in gigahertz, right? So the frequency measurement procedure is very simple and straightforward, and it doesn't require a separate setup. And in the same setup of impedance measurement, the frequency measurement can be also be done. Okay, so the same setup can be used in order to measure the frequency of source, microwave source. Only the thing is here that we want to measure the frequency without using frequency meter, and that's why we will skip the use of frequency meter, and the unknown load impedance we will replace with a short circuit. So these are the two changes that we need to make in order to measure the frequency. So from that you will find out the guide wavelength. Okay, measure the inner broader dimension of the rectangular waveguide, that will give you the small value of A. Put these equations values over here and find out the free space wavelength. Once you know the free space wavelength, you can find out the frequency in gigahertz by using the simple equation 30 divided by lambda 0 in centimeter, and you will get the frequency directly in gigahertz. Okay, so this procedure will actually work fine without using frequency meter, and the procedure of measurement of frequency by using the frequency meter you already know. So this is the second technique which I discussed right now for the measurement of unknown frequency when we do not have to make use of frequency meter. Okay, so I hope you understood these two simple procedures of measurement of the parameter unknown impedance and the unknown frequency using microwave technique. Okay, so I hope you understood these two techniques, and earlier to these two parameter we successfully developed a theory in order to measure the VSWR offered by a particular circuit or a transmission line. Okay, so here with this lecture we have completed successfully the measurement procedure of three different parameters: VSWR, unknown complex load impedance, and third is a unknown microwave frequency. So these three microwave parameters, we have developed successfully a theoretical procedure to measure them. Okay. So in our next lecture, the remaining types of parameters of the microwave we are going to cover. Okay. So I hope you understood today's session, and we have completed the theoretical formulation of measurement procedure for VSWR, for unknown complex load impedance, and for unknown microwave frequency. So I will stop over here, and thank you very much.